multiple broken bones, and you're on those gurneys, and you're going across the grass. Oh, yeah, I can interstate imagine. Is horrible. Imagine. And so, anyhow, I got in the ambulance, and I spent the next 6 hours in the emergency room and endured a lot of MRIs and tests and such. I didn't fully understand at the time the extent of my injuries. Matter of fact, when I finally had my turn for surgery, and I guess it was a busy night in the emergency room that I waited 6 hours, I told all the nurses that I wasn't going to go into the surgery until I got to talk to the surgeon. And they were kind of like, okay. Of course, that was just my beginning of my 15-year journey to understand the brain of an orthopedic surgeon. They basically think God, surgeon, or maybe surgeon, God. Sharon's shaking her head, she knows. And God had a perfect plan for me. The surgeon on call is also, and has been for several years, the team physician for the Illini. And he's probably the best we have, and also has one of the most irritating bedside manners I've ever met. But we really understand each other now. I had to quit letting him intimidate me, and now it's okay. But maybe this is why we Sorry. Understand that I was broken, but I didn't yet understand how blessed I would become as a result of this inconvenience. I remember having thoughts of panic, wondering how my family would manage without me and be ready for Amy's graduation. I was really irritated with God's poor timing. My spiritual immaturity allowed me to think that God must be punishing me. I didn't realize that God doesn't operate that way. During this time of breaking, all I could see is the chaos, the pain. I still had to learn how He allows every single event into our lives for good and for one purpose, to draw us to Himself. That's what He's all about. You know, yes, sometimes those difficult things happen from our poor choices. But you know, if we really believe He's sovereign, He could stop us, but He allows us. And sometimes it's nothing we do, it happens to us. Sometimes it's something we do to ourselves. But it's all part of His plan to seek us to get closer. As you might imagine, the day I sit up, I couldn't move my legs out straight. It was kind of a mess, but I remember Tim, one day when Tim was always there. He spent every night in the hospital with me except one night, and my sister stayed with me that night. And if you've ever been with anyone with a lot of serious injuries, you know, I know Beth and Jim know, you'll never get good care unless you have somebody there with you, because nurses are just too busy, right, Sharon? Yeah. It's not because they don't care, it's just they don't clone them, and you don't have enough. But anyhow, one time the surgeon came in and Tim asked him, you know, Dr. Gertler, I think someone had been talking to Tim, and Tim just said, Dr. Gertler, I'm just wondering, will Debbie ever be able to walk again? And I remember thinking, what on earth is he talking about? It's just a couple of broken bones. And it was the first time I'd ever really thought about it. And the doctor said, well, no, I think she'll probably walk again. I'm just not sure what it'll look like. And I thought, okay, now I'm gonna quit. I remember just thinking about, I'm gonna have all these scars on my leg. And I really don't even know how many I have anymore. I've lost track, 6, something, I don't know. I have a lot of scars, but I stopped kind of thinking about the scars and all those vain things and started to get this in perspective of what it might really mean about my future. I even thought, oh man, I don't want to go to the graduation in a wheelchair. Just 2 days before, I was worried I didn't have shoes to match my suit. It really ticked me off, you know? So I worked really hard, as hard as I could that week, to try to get strong enough to sit in a wheelchair. I just couldn't sit up. I can't explain it, just wasn't strong enough. And everything I did, they had to slide me. And some of you who've been in those situations, I'm sure Sharon and others, they have like these big like plastic slide boards that they put you on. And it's the full length of your body, and then they slide you from that to the gurney, because I was like going for x-rays every day, and it was very painful, but I started to feel like Free Willy or something. Because you just like, I couldn't lay it. They use the sheets to move you. It's very bizarre. It's just crazy. But anyhow, the Friday after my car wreck happened on Monday, I received some wonderful news. Busey Bank in Urbana, where I worked, decided to cover all of my costs to have an ambulance take me and Tim to my daughter's high school graduation. Well, it wasn't exactly what I originally thought was going to happen. Oops. Nobody wants to claim it. Just going to act like it's nobody's phone. Where's it at? I was like, oh my goodness, don't let that be my phone. So anyhow, I realized that things had changed. I'd gone from no shoes to match to now riding an ambulance. And you know what? It was okay. I was so thankful I was going to be able to go. The local newspaper, the Champaign News Gazette, called me on the phone and said, you know, we hear Busey Bank is doing this thing to allow you to go to your daughter's graduation. Somebody tipped them off, great human interest story, you know, and they're like, we'd love to interview you. And I'm like, you know, I had a pretty tough week. And I just told them, you know, I'd be happy to have an interview, but there are no photos. I was serious, and it was on the front page of the paper, and I forgot to get it. I think I'm still saved that paper, but, and I was very grateful that, God bless me, I worked in the trust department, and I happened to just work right outside the office of the CEO, and so I knew important people, and that's how it happened. It was a very good thing. So when the paper ran the story on Saturday morning that Angie was graduating, Amy was graduating, a kind woman I had met through my jewelry business owned a local salon and phoned me Saturday morning and offered to come do my hair and makeup. It was very sweet because I couldn't hold my arms up. So it's like, you know, I'm pretty vain. I didn't want to go in like one of those surgical things. And so I'm like, yes, please come help me out. They haven't washed my hair since Monday. So, and that was always something we had to work on because I couldn't wash my own hair for several months. But anyhow, I had just met her through the jewelry business, and she saw the story and came. And just God gave us a lot of little things along the way that were just little reminders that He hadn't forgotten us. My family and friends took care of Amy's graduation reception completely. They finished preparing and buying the food. They planted the flowers that were still sitting in the front porch that didn't get in the ground in time, cleaned and decorated the house. While everyone went to the reception, Tim and I rode in the ambulance, and Tim rode in the back with me. It's kind of funny now, but I remember the nurses were so excited for me. And, you know, they had to unhook me from, you know, my morphine pump and all those things, and they were, like, giving me all the pills and stuff. They're like, you're not supposed to leave the hospital with this, but we'll let you take it, you know, and all this stuff. And they even, underneath all my covers, because I, like, had my suit jacket on, I looked, you know, tried to look as normal as I could up here, and they stuck a bedpan underneath the covers, and, like, just in case, and, like, how much worse can it get? And we had these two paramedics that I thought they were just going to take me into the church where she graduated from. It was in a church, and just kind of, you know, go back and we'll hang out at the ambulance, get coffee, whatever they do. But they like stood one on each side of my bed like bodyguard. And they were really, the woman was like, you know, kind of a masculine, like, don't test me, buddy, type of person. And like, Amy came and had to bring me a flower because Amy was valedictorian, and I was so worried. She had to do her speech. Tim had been sleeping at the hospital all week. She didn't have anyone to, people were staying with the girls, you know, it was a zoo. And so she came and brought me my flower, and she had to walk all the way because I was like in the lobby, but fortunately it was all glassed in so I could see. And so she came and brought me the flower, and here was this big ambulance woman. She's like going, so it's quite a memory. But I made it, and I went back to the hospital, and all the rest of my family went to the reception for Amy, but there was, of course, no way I could do that. And my sister, if any of you know her very well, is married to Tony Trisilla, and he's like ex-Marine, been to Afghanistan twice, Iraq twice. He looks like Bruce Willis, basically, and has kind of the whole personality. They sent Tony to stay in the hospital with me. And I have a great memory of big tough Tony just sitting at the foot of my bed the whole time, just try to mess with her. You know, he was just like guarding me. It was so cute. So that's basically that part of the story. I stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks. 1 week of that, I was in the rehab unit. I needed to get strong enough that for the next 3 months, I would be in a wheelchair. And I had to get strong enough to be able to kind of push myself out of bed and do all these things that it was my upper body. My upper body wasn't strong enough. And about the second day I was in the rehab unit, this was week 3, a real kind of nice looking man with a kind of professionally dressed came in my room, and he introduced himself. I don't know if he said he was Dr. somebody. I just remember he was real kind of acted casual. And he was asking me these kind of questions like, how you doing? And I knew he was from the hospital, but I hadn't quite pieced it together. And then I'm like, I got it. It's the hospital shrink. And I guess maybe they do that when you have trauma things, and he was just kind of checking to see how I was doing. And after I figured it out, I'm like, it was very good for me because it kind of helped me to verbalize what had been in my head, you know, and I think that was the first time I had to really come to grips with, you know, God is in control of it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And this is where the rubber meets the road. Do you really believe all the things that you say you believe? And I think it helped me. I think it surprised him. I think he decided I wasn't a Looney Tunes, I hope. And it was just, I know, no accident. I had to kind of piece it together in my own head. I was learning every day how broken I was, but I was also starting to get the bigger picture that I was also very blessed. I had so many people just shower me with love. And what was kind of crazy, because the story was in the paper, I got letters, quite a few, from people I'd never met. And a lot of them just wanted to like reach out and tell me their story. And some of them, a lot of them were much worse than mine. And a lot of them had the whole hit by a drunk driver with no insurance, you know, and ours was nothing like that. But, you know, I realized some of those things really sustained me. And sometimes we just need a visual. Oh, I didn't bring them all. But sometimes I just have a portion of this, I like to say things that sustained me. And maybe you don't think a card means a lot to a person sometimes, but you know, if you're in a wheelchair for 3 months, basically all I did is go to doctor's appointments for the next 3 months. A card or a letter, and even someone you don't know very well, I had so many encouraging words. I had a letter from a lady I had only met about once, but I knew her adult daughter. And she just really helped me to see that sometimes if I didn't have the answers or I didn't understand what God was doing, there would be other people who would pray for me. And I wish I still had it. The first time I gave my testimony, I had it, but Tim and I can't keep track of the car keys. How can I keep track of that stuff anymore? But I had this wonderful card from this mom of a lady I knew, and she sent me a personal letter, and basically she just said, Debbie, when you don't, I feel like God has called me to be your prayer warrior. And when you don't have the strength to pray, or when you don't know what to pray, He's going to ask me to pray for you. And that meant so much to me, because I did have those moments when I didn't know how to pray. Because I was like, will I walk again? You know, what should I learn from this? And so never take for granted how much even a simple card will mean to someone, or a personal note, or praying for those who don't know how to pray sometimes. Oops. This was my visual. usual, I forgot going to graduation. Another thing that happened that we didn't realize, I don't know, until later in the day after my car wreck. I was going home that night because my daughter had her last youth symphony concert. I was talking to Jim about that. Both our girls played violin, and Amy played in the local youth symphony. So I needed to hurry home because she had a concert on campus, and obviously I never made it. But what happened is, before Tim got the phone call about my car wreck, she left home early to head towards her concert. And when she did, she came upon the scene of the accident. Thankfully, all the emergency vehicles and cars around, she didn't see my van. She just knew there was a bad wreck. And at that point in our lives, God was doing some really amazing things at the school, and the Spirit was really working, and my daughter was really growing in the Lord. Tim was having some exciting things happening. God, it wasn't any accident that we were in good places in that way. And so Amy saw the scene of the wreck, and she said, I just knew God wanted me to pray for whoever was in that car wreck. She was praying for her mom. So don't deny the nudge to pray sometimes.